that the demo went, right? It was, I said, I drank your wine as you taste mine. I kissed your lips, you felt my body. Like his version went, I drank your wine and you taste mine. Yeah, I kissed your lips, you felt my body. He said, into your soul, girl, I heard you moan. And I went into your soul. It was an accident. It was like the second take. And I was like, I forgot the words. He's like, no, we're keeping that. And that was it. The rest is history. A lot of people's favorite part of the song was the happy. We talked about this the last time about how some artists are writers, they want creative control, and they just want to find somebody to invest in that. Then there are other artists like a Whitney Houston who are a vehicle for songs. They can sing, sing the back of a cereal box and make it sound good. So if you're that type of an instrument, you want to have the best shot at being seen and heard so that the best people come and work with you, in that way. So you remember how we talked about Sabrina Carpenter? I just wanted to correct the record. I was wrong. Her first release was in 2015.
Oh, even longer.
2015. Best
Wow.
New Artist of 2024. I saw it on iTunes. I went back and looked because I said 7 years, but it was like 9. 9 years to become Best New Artist.
Wow.
Go figure. But I did listen to the album. I listened to the most recent record, and I was blown away. Heads and shoulders above Taylor Swift, but it's the same producers. When I say heads and shoulders above, I mean vocally, you have to listen to it from a perspective of the audience she's trying to reach, and it sounds very conversational, edgy. It's like Billie Eilish meets Taylor Swift. It's a little more musical, and I think it's some of Jack Antonoff's best work because I'm into that kind of stuff too, like like Max Martin, like straight up pop records.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Sabrina Carpenter fan now. I'm like, and I listened to
Okay.
that new Mary J record that you're telling me about, the new Mary J
Oh,
record. The
okay.
first 6 songs were slamming. And then I started to notice where, there's a few missteps here and there, but that's with any album, and that's just my opinion. But I
Yeah.
think that I didn't miss Puffy at all because, we come from the era where you only needed 2 singles and, the rest of the album is hit or miss.
Yeah.
She's hitting more than she's missing, and even her misses are still good.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think
yeah, yeah.
I love it. I love that she's where she went with this. It's my new favorite Mary J
It's
record.
your new favorite. Yeah, yeah. When I mentioned Puffy, I was like, if this album had come out a year and a half ago before the Troubles, it wouldn't surprise me if he would have featured on a track and it just
Yeah.
that sort of type of stuff. But no,
It's
I
still not too
think
late. We have AI.
no, but I still think that yes, she kind of went throwback. I mean, she had Dark Child doing I think 3 tracks. She had DJ Cassidy doing about 2 or 3 tracks, and a DJ I'm not who's her music director doing the bulk of the track. So she kind of kept it with just 3 and not going all over the place. So
Yeah. It gave the album consistency though. I
yeah,
thought it was
that
good.
that's
Like really,
yeah yeah, which is
yeah.
different.
Like
Okay.
the first 6 in a row, I was like, oh, favorite, oh, favorite,
Yeah,
oh,
yes,
favorite, oh,
yes, yes,
favorite.
yes, yes, yes,
There's
yeah.
a few that I was like, I see what they were doing. I like the track, but like vocally, like she's definitely come a long way. What I love about Mary is she's not as technical a singer as Leona Lewis per se, but
Hmm.
she sings with so much heart and you feel it, and that energy and the authenticity, it gives it something.
Hmm.
So when they try to clean her up, I'm like, but when she cleans herself up, you can tell the difference between her saying, I've grown as a singer and this is my way of letting you know that I've come a long way. I think it's a great record. It really is. It
Okay.
harkens back to those days.
Yeah, so okay. That was good. Yeah, we're doing a review on the album, I think in a couple of weeks, ahead of the vinyl release. So that's something new. So I mean that's a big story that you started off with working with Leona, but outside of her, did you then get more involved in producing? Because before
Yes,
we
as a
look
matter
at
of
other
fact.
producers, let's look at yourself.
So once Allison Janney, like I met him at the Babyface tour, but once he saw that I could write for Leona like on the spot, he'd bring me other artists. Since then, trying to think someone you would know is probably his father. Have you ever seen the movie The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? You know the whistle, the
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, damn, damn, yeah.
Ennio Morricone and this gentleman named Alessandro Alessandroni are legends within film and cinema. Um, and the Whistler puts his own records out. He plays guitar, he whistles, he conducts orchestras, and they asked me to do an arrangement. Well, his son asked me to do an arrangement on his father's record.
Wow.
Um, and that was really cool because I flew out to Italy and stayed in like this little hamlet, um, chickens and goats, and like worked with this guy. And that's how things work out. Was that turns out that his wife, the Whistler's wife, wrote 6 books with the late Dr. Maya Angelou when she was still alive. So, one thing led to another where I worked with this one little unknown girl who went on to become successful. But in the meantime, because of that freebie, somebody else, wanted me to do something on them. And then that turned into another thing and another thing.
Okay.
And I was telling you about the animation project I was working on was actually
Yes,
brought
yes.
by the same guy that introduced me to Leona Lewis, you know? And then the bandmates that played on those records, we all wind up going on tour together. So I'd done like this whole rock project. I just did a soundtrack last year for a horror movie called Guillotine, and the director of that film is the one who shot the video for Leon Lewis footage, behind the scenes footage. So
Okay.
it's a big happy network of
So
people.
is how important for those of us who are not in the industry, how important is this networking and connections? Do people just look and say, "Oh, you're talented, let's give it a shot," or is it about who you know and who knows you and who trusts you, or what's it?
There's a saying, "Who you know gets you in, what you know keeps you in," and I'm usually an introvert. It's been my biggest struggle is that the idea of getting out and meeting new people kind of repulses me because most of the time, folks, myself included, could be a disappointment if you get your hopes up, right? But at the same time, I can say that the handful of friends that I genuinely made, we get each other work. We trade favors, and then that circle expands because that one favor that you do for somebody, you never know. Now, I would not advise doing anything for free or doing favors. But again, I had the luxury of doing it then because I was already a somewhat successful artist. Like I had
Mm.
some free time. I wasn't like working a 9 to 5 and then doing free songs for somebody. But when you think about it, it's really no different than Joe Jackson. I mean, here's a guy living in Gary, Indiana, with a house full of kids, and somehow he was taking these kids, putting them through the paces, training them. Nobody was paying him to do that. He's going around to anybody who'll listen to say, "Listen to my kids, listen to my kids." So
Mm.
and Gladys Knight and Diana Ross and Berry Gordy and all these folks that get the credit for having blown them up. If it wasn't for that one guy, the one dad, love
Mm.
him or hate him, that legwork of meeting people. And the most successful artists of all time, most of them are pre-internet, or at least pre-internet boom. So
Mm.
that ought to tell you that it was all about the connections.
Mm. Yes, yeah. And I guess that's the thing about, if you don't love the music, and you only chase going it for the fame and fortune, then it might be, it can have its drawback as well.
Well, I think that they're going to wind up in your office because fame is fleeting. You can get the money back, but it's kind of hard to go back from being infamous to famous again. Like you're never unfamous, unfortunately. Like I don't consider myself a celebrity, but I'm reminded all the time. Somewhere I'll go and someone says, "That guy," and then I'm like, "Oh, now I gotta snap back into the memory bank." Um, like when I go to Malaysia, people will ask me to take a picture, and I'm like, "Oh, that's right. Yeah, they recognize me here. It's so strange." And now I'm here in
Mm.
Philly in my hometown, and I'm riding the train with everybody else like a normal human being. I think
Okay.
celebrity compromises your mental health because you get into this unreality, into this bubble. Imagine you meet a stranger and they know more about you than you know about them, and they have this perception that's carefully curated by the public, and they think you've got money. They think even if you do have money, you should have the option of not letting everybody know you have money when you have money. It's like it'd be nice for people to think I'm broke, so they stop asking for money. It's so
Yeah.
unhealthy.
Yeah, no, yeah. As I said, I think it's hard for those to know what it's like. I think, I think the perception I had of artists pre-lockdown was, all these $1 million videos, everyone's riding rich, and then it was, I think, what the first thing that happened during lockdown, especially on Instagram, was trying to post a video and it says, oh, you can only post 28 seconds because the owner is the label, and even the artist couldn't post more than 28 seconds. And that's when I recognized that actually they don't even own the music. And then when I started doing the interviews, I reckon heard that, yeah, we were just like a hired hand and we didn't own anything. And actually, some of us had to work, and some of us are still working 9 to 5 and then sing on the weekends. And I think the reality of this form, fame and fortune really, yeah, really shaped how we saw things. You know, some have
Indeed.
made it,
Yes, indeed.
some have shifted where they become actually like some SWV or Keith Sweat.
Yeah.
If you start to see them, I mean, they're constantly on tour, constantly headlining, and it's almost
Yes.
as if they've almost been given the status of how we used to look at those legendary Motown artists, but
Yeah.
actually they're being respected and getting their dues this late in life, which is great. Escape and stuff like that.
Yes. The 90s R&B is now OG. I mean, it
Yeah,
is what it is.
yeah. Yeah, okay, but I think so I mean, part of what we really wanted to do was to really look back at, t 20 of the producers that you think have shaped you, and really wanted to kind of count our way down. So we start at number 20, and then we get to
Okay. Okay,
number.
now before I start, I want to say that this is by no way a definitive or exhaustive list. Number two is that my honorable mentions will piss people off that they're not in the top. You specifically said people that influence me, so obviously I'm the only one that can answer that. But I would be remiss. I mean, when I tell you 52, these are just,
See, as you can see, the top of the heading was top 10. So the fact that
yes,
you went to
it says
50,
top 10.
and we
And
started
these
at
are
top
no
10.
specific order. These are no specific order. Now, I have my reasons for them, but I'll just put it like this. Um, Coming in at number 20, and this is hard for me, but Brian Alexander Morgan.
Oh,
Now, he's a guy who doesn't get as much love and respect for what he does, what he did. He is, for those who don't know, SWV's first producer. He's an excellent producer that I've worked with personally. But when we first got signed and we recorded, as yet recorded a lot of music with producers who were in the industry to this day. If you've heard SWV, do you remember, you know, Rain?
yeah.
You know, my favorite song was Always on My Mind. He actually sings on that song.
Yeah.
The Human Nature remix was Teddy Riley, but the original right here,
Mm,
Brian Alexander Morgan. He's worked with Layla Hathaway. He did her first single,
wow.
so I put him in at number 20. But that's not a ranking. That's just I had to, like I said, I had to leave some people off. But I would never leave off Brian. Shout out to Brian Alexander Morgan. All right, coming in at number 19, I'm going to say Dallas Austin.
Okay.
Now, Dallas Austin is best known for I mean, SWV, TLC, another girl
Yes.
group.
Yeah.
Um, but he's been around the block. But a lot of people don't know that Dallas Austin produced Hard to Say Goodbye for Boys to Men. So people think of Waterfalls and they think of all the songs that TLC did, but he was a really great vocal arranger too, you know,
Mm.
Dallas Austin. Um, all right, I'm at 1918. Teddy Riley. Teddy Riley. Hello. I'm sorry, this is the New Jack Swing podcast. I should have put him number one. I'm fired. But I mean, some people are definitive of an era and then some. I shouldn't have held him in such high regard, considering that he produced No Diggity, which beat As Yet for the Grammy that year against Hard to Say.
I see.
But, give respect where it's due. Teddy Riley. All right, where am I at now? 17. Roger Troutman.
Wow. Okay. That's
Yes, because I respect his production. He created a genre that has, you know, many will say that influenced artists like T-Pain on down.
even
He was
Teddy.
one,
Yeah.
and Ted, of course, and Teddy. Um, but he was, I'm sure there are others who have done it and, will continue to do it. But Roger Troutman, I give any producer credit who took the courage to buck what was going on and just do
Mm.
him. He was very unique, and people copied him and ran with it.
Yeah. I
Um,
like the H-Town thin line between love and hate. That's the
yes,
vibe. Yeah.
yeah, and
He yeah, he did a lot. Okay, yeah.
you know what's up. Okay, now I'm skipping around because these are not in my order of favorite. It's just I can only pick 20. Um, I'm gonna say, wow, Nile Rodgers. Nile Rodgers, people know from everything from Le Freak, Le Chic to Get Lucky by Daft Punk. Um, my favorite song of his, We Are Family by Sister
Okay.
Sledge.
Mm.
If you've ever there were again someone whose production style is unto itself an art and people copy it. Those are really influential people. Like, you give Teddy credit for creating New Jack Swing. I would say that, with Nile Rodgers, he functified pop music and gave it soul and made soul music pop and functified. Like, he's just one of a kind when it comes
I
to
think
that.
people
Like, if
forget that he did like a
it's him.
I think he did Papa Don't Preach Her Like a Virgin for Madonna.
Yeah, uh-huh. He's a bad cat, man. And like he's got a great ear. Um, okay, Max Martin. Now we talked about him
Have you
earlier,
ever
but
seen him before? Because he's very
I,
influenced
I
name,
know
but
he's like a mysterious Svengali. Now he's got everything from Britney Spears, Backstreet NSYNC, and all them. But my favorite particular song for the writing and the sonic "Shape of My Heart." Backstreet Boys, "Shape of My Heart." It's just a gorgeous song. But again, he's someone who you can identify with an era. So as I go up the list, I think about that. All
is he
right.
still making music now, or is he one that just has used
That's
to?
that's a good question. I've seen some things that he's been credited on, but I'm not sure if I think kind of where Jack Antonoff is now is what Max Martin was for that era, but I would never
Okay.
write him out. He's probably scoring something right now for all I know.
Okay.
Um, all right. Norman Whitfield.
Okay,
Everyone
from
talks,
Motown.
yes, everyone talks about Holland Dozier Holland. They're the writing team, and
Mm.
that put together a lot of the hits. But Norman Whitfield, um, heard it through the grapevine. Like again, he
Did
worked
he do
on
Papa Was a Rolling Stone or
yes, he did that. He did a lot of the Temptations definitive albums. So again, if every time you think of a sound in an era, one producer's name keeps coming up, you make it to my top 20. And like I said, you made it to my top 52. Um, all right. Ooh, Rick Rubin.
okay? So I always think of Rick Rubin as LL Cool J's
I mean, LL, Beastie Boys, you name it. But the
Beastie
thing about
Boys. Yes, yes.
what I love about him is that he's a cerebral cat who doesn't play a single instrument. you know, but his ear is an instrument, and he's a visionary that knows how to make things happen. Like, there are different kind of producers. There are some who play every instrument, and then there's the ones who know how to make the product. That's part of the producing, is to produce a result, and that's what Rick Rubin represents for me. Okay, Prince. Everyone talks about his writing and his vocals, but
Mm.
how many people can you say would play every instrument and produced his own demo to get the deal and said, no, I'm not. He held his ground with his vision and then hired a band. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes a lot of courage to see your vision, stick to it in the face of an industry that wants a piece of you all the time,
Mm.
and be timeless on top of it. So Prince Kiss was the song I picked, because it's hard to pick one. Um, Dr. Dre.
Okay.
I don't know which one I'm on yet, but I know we're
No,
short.
we could go through them and talk through them, yeah.
So I'm sure your viewers already know who Dr. Dre is and who he produces. But I think They need to know, if you haven't heard it already, Dr. Dre produced a record with Marsha Ambrosius from Floetry called Casablanco with a full orchestra. Like he went on some Quincy Jones stuff. And it gave me a newfound respect for him because it's one thing, like he's again a definitive sound. The Dr.
Mm,
Dre sound is sought after, and you know it when you hear it, them
mm,
drums knock. But he managed to find a way to fuse that sonic with live instrumentation. It kind of harkened back to like when the Guru's Jazzmatazz album. Like I was blown away that he
Jazzmatazz,
was
yeah.
capable of something like that. So you got to check out this Casablanca album. It's dope. It should win a Grammy just for the sonic alone. Um, I mentioned them before, but could not leave them off the list. Timbaland, I definitely just the stuff that he did with Aaliyah and Timbaland and Missy Elliott, they were, a team at a time. Timbaland and
Mm.
Magoo were a team at a time. Timbaland plus anything turns out dope. Timbaland and just, you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
just some people that is the minute they're in the mix, they can be versatile, but still somehow maintain a sense of identity. And that to me is the mark of a great producer. I did meet him a couple times, and I love the fact that it never turns off. Like he's just it flows through him. Very
Mm.
influential producer. All right, now I'm getting into some of the heavy hitters. I mean, they're all hitters, obviously, but again, I'm sticking to the ones that influence me for different reasons, and I'm going with next Babyface.
Okay.
Now, before As Yet got our record deal, we used to sit around and say, man, if we could only work with him, because Babyface, even back then, he was a legend 30 years ago. Actually having sitting and watching him work and being around him and seeing what it is he actually does, it gave me a newfound respect for him. And if I had to pick one song, there is only one song in existence that features vocalists from both As Yet and Boys to Men called I'll Lay You Down, produced by Babyface. It's on the Day album. Gorgeous song. Gorgeous song. But he's done so
Did,
many things. Pick one.
did he have you guys all record separately and blend them in? Did you guys
Separately,
know that?
he got Kenny Terry and Mark Nelson, Sean and Wanye. Like on different days, everybody was in on
Okay,
different days.
okay.
But like when you hear that record, it sounds like a duet between two groups. And Babyface has a verse, and then you hear Mark and you hear Kenny doing a little bass run in there. I mean, it's just really nice. It's gorgeous
Oh.
song. It's like, yeah, heaven on wheels. Um, all right. So this person specifically shaped me. He worked on As Yet's first record, but we know him from Take Six, Mervyn Warren. Mervyn Warren also produced the Handel's Messiah. There's this gospel, if you know, you know, but he's worked with everyone, gospel legends, Stevie Wonder on down. He's a vocal arranger. Those of us like Boys to Men, and As Yet from that school, we grew up trying to dissect this man's arrangements, and he actually did some of the arrangements on As Yet's record. Again, personally, Mervyn Warren. If you don't know about him, he's scoring films now. This guy he's a phenom,
Is he still with
phenom.
Take Six or has he left?
As far as I know, he hasn't been with Take Six for, they have a bunch of different iterations, but he's on their first records and one of their original writers and co-writers and producers. If you know Spread Love or Mary Don't You Weep, then you've heard his work. But like Handel's Messiah Soulful Celebration album, it's an all-star gospel and R&B album that he put together and spearheaded on a level that no one person should be able to do. And he's a badass vocalist too. But again, somebody who I wanted to pattern myself after. Um, Basically, he brings me to my next one, who's another personal one. But if you know about Jacob Collier, Jacob
Yes,
Collier,
yes, there's an English
yes,
guy, yeah.
signed to Quincy Jones. He's the next level of that, the same way that Jack Antonoff is for Max Martin. Okay, so I'm getting close to the end
Is
here.
did you put Jacob on your list or did you just
I put him in my honorable mention only because I didn't know if you meant top 10 producers of all time or the 10 that were most personal to me. You threw me a
okay?
curveball because look, the people that I
But
left
did
out
you
who I
talk
thought were
about him then? Have you spoken about Jacob or because
yes,
people might be wondering who's
because
who's
a lot of people compare our work like people compared us because when I was with when I was recording with Viva Mas and we did the Overjoyed. Jacob did "You and I" by Stevie Wonder over a cappella, but he does all his own overdubs. So like
Mm.
when I do the demos for As Yet or for Viva Mas or whoever, I'll do the 5 and 6 part overdubs at home and then bring him in, and he does the same thing. Like he's been locked in his room, and he got the attention of Quincy Jones, and next the rest is history. But he's worked with like new artists, everyone else under like his he wins Grammys every year, and he did like this thing with Daniel Caesar. You might have heard a bunch of stuff. Um, that
Yeah,
being
yeah.
said,
And I think I've seen him with Take Six. I mean, I didn't know about him until they did a BBC documentary about
right.
him. His mom's a classical violinist. So was his grandfather. She's Chinese. His dad was white.
Yep.
But I think he has, I think he may have, it wouldn't surprise me if he has autism because the way he thinks, the way
Yeah.
he hears, the way he
That's
processes sounds.
again, that's why I relate to the man. I'm like, you know what? I get you.
He does
Like,
it.
the stuff comes in and you just want to be a conduit and
Yeah, yeah,
organizational sort of hearing things that don't exist until they're out there. Yeah,
yeah.
I know the
I
struggle, my
think
man.
I saw Herbie Hancock say that he's playing notes that don't exist. He just,
Yes, but that was the thing when I was working with Mervyn Warren, right? He would play chords, and I'm like, "There's a color note right here," and he's like, he puts his fingers down. He says, "Where?" And I'm like, "It's in between those two fingers." Like I hear it, and then he'd look at me and go, "All right, you're a fool, man." And then we put it in. Like I love working with people like that because their imagination is not limited to just the same 12 notes. Like he
Mm,
hears the things in between the things, and I love that. And I think that's a mark of a creative, is like you're actually bringing something that other people don't hear,
mm,
and even if you don't know what it is you're hearing, you still feel it.
yeah.
So shout out to Jacob Collier. um okay, now before I get to my number one, I'm going to spare us a lot of time. I'm going to rattle off like rapid fire honorable mentions that didn't make it in no particular order. um Rodney Jerkins, Leon Silvers, Joshua Thompson,
I know,
Andrew Lloyd
but you can't
Webber.
just
They,
rattle off
yeah.
names. You could say a little bit about them. I mean, I think
I know.
especially someone like
Like,
Leon Silvers. I mean, people would think about the Silvers, and I think people then might, some people might say, "Oh, the Solar Records," and then some people might say,
yes,
"Oh, he actually did a lot of stuff with Blackstreet." But what area of Leon Silvers really stands out to you?
the Whispers era, because
Okay.
here's a guy who was a multi, instrumentalist, like a Prince, like he played the bass and lock in with the drums, and like he put things together. He heard a soundscape, and then with the Whispers, they were like the perfect vehicle for his style, and that fit, man. Just rock steady, all them songs, like it just has
Mm-hmm.
a certain groove and a vibe. It's funny because if I recall correctly, both of us worked in the old Solar building, which is the Edmonds Tower. Used to be Dick Griffey's building, wasn't it?
Okay,
Yeah,
was
that's the irony of the situation, is that there's
oh, so
we
that
have a
was
Silver's connection.
I didn't realize that was the
Yeah,
that because it was just
because
down from
I remember
Capitol, yeah.
it was Babyface had told me, well, Kenny, but Face had told me, he said, he used to work in that building, and
Oh,
I
yes,
think
yes,
brought him
yes,
more
yes.
joy than to be able to purchase his old nemesis's building. Like it's like it's like buying the Taco Bell you used to work at. I guess I don't know
Yeah,
for him,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
Okay,
yeah, it's
yeah. He
kind of
had Brendan Way on the top, and he'll always be up in the studio. And so Tracy was running the show when I was there, and then we had John Burroughs, who was general manager
right.
during the time I was there. Yeah.
Those were
Okay.
the days, like we're dating ourselves.
And then Jackie
So
McClung,
I
and then her son Michael.
Yes, well, unfortunately, Michael and Jacqueline are no longer with
Oh,
us,
I didn't
but
realize.
shouts out.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Jacqueline passed a few years back, and Michael a couple of years back, but just
Okay.
fairly recently. So
Okay.
shouts out to them and the family.
Mm.
My condolences. And a lot of these people I would not have met without Jacqueline McQuarrie or the family. So, you
Hmm.
know,
You
I
mentioned
mentioned,
Darkchild. I mean, what's Rodney?
okay,
He just got nominated to be inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame this past week.
it's well deserved. Now, I think that I saw the episode you were talking about the Michael stuff, Michael Jackson stuff, and he had done a
Mm.
lot of stuff with Michael, but I think he got to Michael a little later in the situation. And at that point, the word around town in LA was that Michael is recording 100 songs. And then after he records 100, then he picks 10, then he
Mm.
records 100 more, then picks 10, then narrows, like, so there are so many people who were hoping to have the opportunity that Rodney had, where they wrote songs. I actually wrote a song with Mark for Michael Jackson that never made it. Like it was presented to him, said he wanted it. It was a song called No Apologies, which would have been perfect for him. But again, Rodney recorded 100 songs to get to the ones that were released. And it's not like he signed Michael to his label where he had complete control over what did and didn't get put out. There's so many other moving parts to the situation. I thought that, it was an unfair representation of everything that I've heard from Rodney. I've met him a few times. Funny story. We're sitting in the studio and he was working with this girl group. I cannot remember the name if they even came out because this was, 20 years ago. And he was going around the room asking everybody what they thought. They're like, "Oh, it's fire, it's fire." I'm in the corner sitting real quiet. And he's like, "You're the only one that hasn't said anything. What do you think about, this song that I just played?" And I said, "I feel like it's kind of derivative of your earlier work. And the second verse didn't develop. It sounded the same as the first. And like, it's all right." And he looked at me. I thought he was going to kick my ass because he's like, and then he says, "You should have heard how it sounded before they got in the studio." He's like, "You know what? I like you. Like you told me, the real of how, even if we disagreed, he was looking for something other than that's great." So
Mm.
we'll always be cool for that.
Yeah, he said the say my name. Because he was in the UK and he was very influenced by garage music. So
Uh-huh.
yeah,
You know what? Yeah, I can hit put it that way. It does sound like
so
garage music.
he called it two step, but it was very similar to if you had ever heard early Craig David.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that can fill me in. Yeah, yeah, that
can you
kind of,
feel me? And so
yeah, it's
that's
got
so
that
he
little.
wanted to. He was trying to do that with Say My Name, and they didn't. They could. So when he the drum beat, that's very much garage,
Yeah.
but he had to change it around because what he initially put out, it would have tanked. Yeah.
But what's really funny, right, is that drum pattern, the not the original garage pattern, but the Americanized version
Yeah.
that got used. Like everybody started copying that version, like for Genuine Records and the Timberland. Everybody start like after a while, I got sick of hearing every song have. It's kind of how like I feel about reggaeton right now. I'm like, I love my reggaeton artists, but can we get a little variation in that beat? Something just
Yeah, yeah.
something. I get bored easily. It's no,
Yeah,
it is.
most people do if you're being flooded by the same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Joshua Thompson. Josh Thompson, he wrote The Things Your Man Won't Do, a lot of Joe stuff. He's written for with and for a lot of people. He's a musician's musician, doesn't get a lot of love. I put him in my honorable mention. I know him personally, but like I said, he don't owe me money. I just literally like he's somebody I can sit in awe of, like, and just listen to what he's working on. And I trust him. Like when he says that I need to work on something, because there's been times when I sent stuff and he's like, "Okay, this is cool, but," and then that but will be a game changing but. Like where I'm like, okay, okay. Like, damn, I thought this was the best I can do. But the fact I don't take criticism as an insult. That means if you think I can do better, I take it as a compliment. But if you thought that I was beyond help, you wouldn't offer any advice.
Yeah. Okay.
So there is no way I could not mention, obviously, we talked about him, but David Foster.
Okay.
Because David Foster is one of the most versatile, from the Aretha Franklins to the Chicagos to the Earth, Wind, and Fires, as yet. Now, I work with David personally. I just saw him in Singapore a few years back when he was doing Asia's Got Talent, and he's still that same guy.
Wow.
Every time I run into him somewhere, he's not acting like a superstar. He's like, "Hey," he said, "Didn't we make some money together?" I said, "Some of us more than others, but how's it going?" And like he's always been that guy. He gives me all the advice that he wished that he would have taken. And one of the things he said to me was that he wished that he hadn't chased after so many production gigs when he had the opportunity to start a label, because now no one will lend him money, because although he's a ultimately successful producer, when it comes to record labels, he didn't have as much success. And like, so he kind of lost a window of time because he was working with like Celine Dion. But I'm like, Cry Me a River. Like somebody says, oh, I could have been more successful if I didn't work with Celine Dion. I mean, how good do you have to be for that to be your problem?
So he was saying that he should have had his own label deal.
He did have his own label, but when he was still committing, like he was working with Whitney and he was working with Celine and all these big artists while trying to run a label. It's kind of similar to what Babyface did in a way, because he was producing the artists on his label, but he was also doing while he was working on As Yet, like signing artists. He had the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack, the
Mm.
Prince of Egypt soundtrack. He had just come off of what the Boomerang and all these other things. So like when you've got your hands everywhere, something's going to suffer. And that's why LaFace was a boutique label, which was considered successful. But if you can only release 3 artists a year and you've got 20 to 25 artists signed, you're losing money overall if you're investing in all of them equally. So a lot of things get lost in the shuffle, and
Mm.
you're only as big as your biggest flop when it comes to a label. Like the minute that you start losing money too many years in a row, I mean, LaFace is bankrupt. That ought to tell you that. But I'm not saying he should have done anything differently. I'm just saying that.
Wow. So, I mean, people will be surprised to hear that. I mean, with all the TLC and Usher and Tony Braxton and Outkast's albums that they were selling, you'd even Sierra was signed to them. You would just assume that they were just anything they released went platinum or double or triple platinum.
Well, for every artist that we hear about, for instance, there's
Or
maybe
even
some of
Donnell Jones.
oh, no.
And
I
yeah.
could I could name twice as many artists that were signed that didn't come out, or that came out, then you might have heard of them because you're in the know. But do you remember Society of Soul? Do you re,
Mm-mm.
they were signed with Goody Mob.
Okay.
When the Outkast and Goody Mob were signed, there was another group called Society of Soul, SOS. They were dope. There was another group called A Few Good Men that was signed the same time as Yet was.
Were they were part of Dallas or something? Okay.
Yep, yep. Organized Noise and all them.
Yeah.
Again, they were signed. There was a group called Choice that had a young Alicia Moore, aka Pink. She was in a
Yeah.
group that was signed. We all sang at the same release party. Like they throw these parties to have you compete against all the other artists for the one release slot per quarter.
Wow.
It's like it's like being signed to the major leagues.
Mm.
Everyone's just fighting for a turn at bat. Like they give you a
Mm.
contract, but you might wait months and months just for one swing, and you better not miss, or else they're not going to call you up again.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really competitive. So there were a lot of great artists. Larnay, do you remember Larnay?
No, never heard of
She
them.
was a great singer. We're still friends. She's a great singer. She was kind of in a bohemian artsy vibe, very
Bohemian.
all natural, right? A sweetheart. Just didn't have enough. They didn't have enough traction. And you talk about Soleil. A lot of people don't never got to hear that record. Like I can't find 5 people on the street that aren't musicians or aren't from my era that would even know who that is. It's so
Mm.
strange. So
Wow.
what I'm saying is that a lot of these producers who we know of that became household names, they're
Mm.
sitting on hundreds and thousands of unreleased material, like the stuff I got with Leona that just for politics or business or whatever just never came out.
But yeah, because when I spoken to Tim and Bob, and they've spoken about, yeah, we
They're on
recorded
my list, by the
this,
way, Tim and
but it
Bob.
just, but they couldn't really, it didn't get released, or you have other people. I mean, I was like, in a digital society, you would assume, yes, back in the day, you need to, press a CD and distribute it and sell it in a shop, but now it's a lot easier to get that material out, but people just don't seem to be.
You know why? It's because the labels now have the budgets, the same budgets they were putting towards pressing and promoting the CDs. They get preferential treatment in the algorithm, and it's set up that way. So the label will have a label account with Spotify and a label account with all of the digital streaming services, to where they get premium features that they pay for extra money for. Little things like lyrics that move with you when like anyone can do that. Like you don't have to be with a label to do things, but if you have a label account with Spotify and you are um, basically contributing to the aggregate, like for instance, like Taylor Swift situation. When you go to Meta and you say, okay, well, I've got, a budget to promote. They're not using Google AdSense the way we're using it on, what I mean? They get a whole different, they're meeting with the owners of these companies and
Mm.
talking to the people that write the code to make sure that the thing comes up. Like it's a handful of people that get that kind of preferential treatment. It's like you said, back in the brick and mortar days, you wanted to be on the shelf, the forward facing, you want the big
Yeah.
placement, product
Yeah.
placement. Now the algorithm is now product placement.
Mm. Okay.
It's
Okay.
not an equal playing field. Never was.
So that means that there's almost no benefits in saying, okay, I've got this song, a duet that I had with Michael Jackson. Unless the estate puts money behind pushing it, it'll just
Well, without advising anyone to do anything crazy, I will say this. If you do happen to be sitting, because there are people sitting on Michael Jackson masters, yeah, your only other option would be to put it out without permission and get sued. But if no one finds it because you don't have a promotion budget, then it's not even going to be worth suing you. And nothing would feel worse than sitting on something that could be potentially worth a lot of money. But nope, I shot my load. Once you put it out without their permission, you can't take it back and then resell it to them, because once it's out there, you've diminished its value. It's no longer something people want to hear. It's something people have heard. And all somebody like me has to do is get a free copy, and now you don't have exclusivity anymore. So that's why I
mm,
said don't like I've been sitting on Leona's stuff forever. I don't, I think it's good, but there's not a single part of me that says, oh, I'm just going to put it out there without talking to her. Nothing like that. I would rather, if she said no, I respect that, because first of all, it's her voice, it's her image, her likeness.
mm,
I wouldn't want to do anything to ruin her career just because I
okay.
never got paid. I never asked. I never, I know how to reach her. I never asked her like, "Hey, can I get $20 for my streams?" No, it's not like that. You want to have friends in high places.
Mm,
Right?
okay.
Yeah.
Who's up next on that list?
Okay. Now I'm at the top end here. So, Stevie Wonder.
Okay.
I say Stevie Wonder as a producer, by the way,
Mm,
who influenced me because, again, inner visions. He had a vision inside that he brought into musical reality, something that existed only in his imagination. He's not a carbon copy. He's not like he set a trend that to this day, you couldn't, I would not be able to take a person seriously as a soul singer who calls themselves a soul singer who's
mm.
never heard Stevie Wonder, like ever. I'd be like, maybe if you're 6 years old.
But when you're talking about producer, are you talking about him producing himself, or are you talking about him producing others?
Like, himself, but also what I mean is, you know, when you hear a Stevie Wonder song,
Mm,
but you don't know whether he produced it or not, because his sound is the production, his chord structures, his melodies, his arrangements. It is the production. The same way that, like, for instance, when uh or Jacob Collier does a cappella, right? It's production, but there's no instrument other than voice, right? It's
yeah.
the style. His style of production is a thing unto itself. So for instance, like when he did Part-Time Lover, with Luther, right?
Was Luther on that?
Stevie Wonder wrote that.
Yeah, but
It's
what you
like,
said with Luther, you said with
that's
Luther.
Luther Vandross singing in the background.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he was known to do that. Like he'd bring his friends and other people, like the circle, like Saida Garrett and all them. Uh, so a lot of songs that he did with and for other people, he would be snuck in the background, or he'd sneak in artists in the background of his other music. But the thing
Mm,
that I respect and love the most about him is that he is a style unto himself. And I think that's the same thing that he has in common with someone like Timberland, where the Timberland sound or the Prince sound. Like there
mm.
is a Stevie Wonder sound that he produced.
Okay.
Ooh,
Okay.
gotta love him. Gotta love him. All right. Now, I lost count, but can I just get to number one, or we got
You
30
can
more?
go. Yeah, you can go. Yeah, you can go for some more if there are any more on there.
Okay, let's see here. I The Avila Brothers.
The who?
The Avila Brothers. They produced the Usher's Confessions album. They are a duo that you have to hear the way they put stuff together. They like any R&B that was made from the 90s till now, they wind up in the mix for their writing and production style. And the one brother he's the drummer.
Mm.
He's a percussion slash programmer. And the other brother that plays the keys
Mm.
and he sings like Stevie Wonder, but like writing all of these like R&B pop cuts. Just look up the Avila Brothers. They're Mexicans, but they sound like soulful. It's hard to explain how good they are. Like it's a crime that more people don't know who they are. But the Avila
Wow.
Brothers, there's I work with them, so like I said personally, I put them on my list
But do
because
they have a song that is well known international
I
that
mean
you?
the whole Confessions. This is my confession. Like Usher's Confessions album, they produced the whole record, but they also did his new stuff too.
Oh, I thought
Um,
Jermaine Dupri did that one. Okay.
check it. They produced on the record. I didn't say that they executive produced it, but you know how we talk about, for instance, Keith Andes working with Babyface.
Yes,
Everybody
yeah.
gives Babyface the credit, but don't give the people. I'm that guy who's like, no, I want to know who played what, who, who. It's one thing when someone gives the order.
Mm.
It's another thing when they give the instructions. You know what I'm saying? But let's see. I'm just breaking this down for you real quick. Um, just because this is fun. This is fun for me. Because you said name the songs that everybody would know. All right, because I'm skipping through. If okay, Confessions, Demita, Joe, Janet Jackson, Shaka Khan, Miguel. Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the ones that you might know of. If you heard of Macy Gray, Yolanda Adams, Maya, Kenny Lattimore, Shantae Moore, Usher. I mean, Gwen Stefani, Janet Jackson. They did Jamaica Joe. I mean, oh, we were just talking about Mary J. Blige, The Breakthrough. They produced on that. They did two songs for that jam, and one of them
Mm.
the top 100 here in America. You know, they just work with so many great people, and like they're such great musicians. It's a shame. It's a crime that more people don't know who the Avila Brothers are. So I had to put them on my honorable mention. Um, John B. Now I know we both have our a personal history with John B,
Mm.
but again, he's a multi-instrumentalist, musical family, can start to finish bring you a record from scratch. The boy can sing, he can play, image and all of those things is great, but like he has a certain vibe. And I loved working with him. You know, I've written some songs with him, cover song. I mean, the title track for Pleasures You Like, entitled
Mm.
Pleasures You Like. But I've known him for years, and like he never ceases to amaze me. He's a criminally underrated producer. I don't know if you're hip to Mike City. It's another one. Um,
Okay.
I can do this all day, but these are the ones that like. They came to me like I didn't have to like research and stuff. It's like, oh, what about like for instance, like I don't know, Warren Campbell, Troy Taylor, Candy Burris. I mean, she's just for what
Okay.
she does. I wouldn't obviously like put her on the same level with certain producers, but she has a vibe and an identity. Like there's a certain thing that you can
But
kind
then
of tell.
with Candy, is she not? I think she worked with Shakespeare, so she did a lot of the writing and Shakespeare did the
Yeah.
production.
Yeah, and some people work better in a team. Like you're talking about Tim and Bob. I
Mm.
love both of them. You know, we did some songs, as yet did some songs that were unreleased that were,
Wow.
really great. And it was great because they actually, for someone a team that big, they were one of the few teams that just came with open tracks and said, "You want to write something?" And we sat and
Yeah,
wrote.
that's what Bob says that they want you they
Yeah.
always want the artists to be parts of it.
Yeah. And I like the fact that like it wasn't just lip service. They literally like, we sat with pens and pads, old school.
Mm.
We wrote some really good stuff, but again, the second record on LaFace never came out. Um,
Was it completed?
um, well, if completed means accepted, no, but we did enough songs for 3 or 4 albums on LaFace. But like you said about not owning the music. So what happens is the producers that have publishing deals get shared access to a studio that's owned by their like say Warner Chappell or Sony or whoever gave them that deal, and then they look for, the call sheets, and they get the inside track on all the artists that are looking for records. So they sign the artists to publishing deals, and those are the ones who get to co-write. Or they say, look, you've got to get a certain number of placements on signed artists released in order to fulfill your end of the contract as a writer. So basically, they're not getting, some of them, the ones that get producer fees, is the top echelon. You know what I mean? And
Timberland, the Rodneys, the
even
Ted.
then, they still don't come out, because what'll happen is the label will say, okay, we agreed to the deal, but then somehow the money doesn't show up. And then the label sold the catalog and folded, and you're just stuck with an unfulfilled invoice. Like,
Wow.
you write it off. And then basically, because the artist doesn't own the music, and the publishing company that once had you under contract no longer exists, or they sold off their controlling share or the rights, you've got to go and chase these people down, and they're not going to pay you. They'd rather you take them to court, and it's not worth it, because for a 20-year-old song, for an artist that's it's there's so much. uh, yeah, it's ugh. I could pull my hair out. Oh man. But yeah, it's really unfortunate, because there are so many criminally underrated producers. And again, I'm just throwing some of these out here because maybe you've heard of them. And these again are people that I've worked with, like Brian Michael Cox, Warren Campbell, Jay Moss, B Slade, um, Jay Dilla, who is like, one of hip hop's luminaries, the RZA, like, who basically was the architect of the Wu-Tang sound. Like, I study these people because there's something unique about each of them. And it's not that I just sit around looking for weird or different things. It's just that I get hired. Like, people will call me and say, hey, look, I'm working on a film and I'm looking for something that sounds like, I don't know, Evanescence and Slipknot. And I'm like, let me actually listen to their music and find out who did what and how it was put together, so that I can, bring something to the table that has that kind of energy for that situation. It's like the same thing if you're an actor and someone wants you to play a character, you better study, the biography of the character. If you know what I mean. And like, I have my own identity as a producer, but for me, I've never cared about how I'm perceived. I want to be in service to the music. If if I can deliver what you need, that means I succeeded. So
Yeah.
I got Linda Perry. Linda Perry.
It's
Um,
she's not the one that used to wear hats.
yep, that's the one.
Okay.
It's another underrated
Is she
female
just always
writer.
Cyndi Lauper? What is she?
Yeah, yes, and she also did Pink's stuff. I'm coming out, so you
Oh
better
yeah,
get.
yeah, yeah, Pink. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
she's got her hand in a lot of stuff. Diane Warren, of course, but Diane Warren is known more for her songwriting. She'll
Mhm.
literally write and play on a piano and then send it to someone like David Foster to
Yeah,
produce.
yeah.
So that's why I put her in honorable mention, because she doesn't necessarily come to the studio and guide you through the whole thing. I'm sure you're hip to Narada Michael Walden. Like,
Mhm.
that era of songwriting is unmatched. The Dream and Tricky Stewart. A lot of these guys from our era that, of course, Jam and Lewis. I mean, it's Jam and Lewis. You know what I mean? Like, that could be a whole episode unto itself. Um, George Duke, like this. There's just certain artists that know how to elevate the genres that are available at the time into its own thing. So a lot of these artists, and I mean, a lot of these producers I mentioned are also songwriters and artists. But
Mhm.
for me, it was what they produced that got my attention. And some are
Mhm.
better at one thing, like more better at their instruments. For instance, a lot of people don't know that Quincy Jones sings.
Okay. I never did he release this? I've never seen him
He did it.
sing.
He did. There's an album entitled "You Got It, Dad," and it's a Stevie Wonder song, and he rearranged it for his album and sang it. And
Mm.
Stevie's playing on the record, but not singing it. It was just
Okay.
wow. I'm not saying he sings like Stevie Wonder, but again, everyone thinks, well, you knew that he played horns. He also is the chart master and all those things. Um, but just being able to put yourself, to take a step back. Like, the problem that I have with producers these days, and I'll say many people may agree with me that Puffy is in this camp of people who, because they are the president of the label. And because their name is on so many things, that somehow they wind up getting more credit than the people who actually did the legwork, who
Mhm.
actually did the programming, did the playing. It's one thing, like I said, it's one thing to give orders, it's another thing to give instructions. So um, that brings me to my number one, which is Quincy Jones. For me personally,
Mhm.
not just because of Thriller. Everybody knows Thriller. But I grew up on the Sanford and Son theme song, or like Roots. Like, here's a guy that went from being a jazz player to a jazz arranger to a pop writer. He wrote Leslie Gore's "It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want to." Like, that was
Mhm.
his Britney Spears breakout. Then he started, well, I probably have his whole life story twisted, but he definitely did all these things. Then
Mhm.
he's scoring for films. Then, he's got a magazine. He owns film companies. He's producing shows. Like, his progression from the low to the high and everything in between, every last one of those things he did well, exceptionally well. It wasn't like, oh
Mhm.
well, they're only giving him the opportunity to have his own because he did Michael Jackson. No, I mean, have you seen The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? It's a standalone. If that's all he ever did, you'd say that guy, you know, is good at his job. If
Mhm.
all he ever did was Thriller, you'd say he's good at that. But if you watched the man play horns in his heyday, you'd say, man, if I wish I could be that good. If you know what I mean, like, you can pick any one song and retire
Mhm.
on it. And there's very few people I've seen, I don't expect to see in my lifetime, who have been able to take, okay, how many people do you know can take so many different disparate elements, artists, and moving parts and command them into a space?
Mhm.
We Are the World. The way that he put that together, he struck when the iron was hot, when like everyone was in town for the Grammys, and he's got lawyers in the limo making it, like that's an executive producer. And then he arranges the thing and conducts the choir and lets the writers write and lets the people do their thing. He's not micromanaging everything and putting his ego into it, and like camo, it didn't say "We Are the World" featuring Quincy Jones. You know what I'm saying? When it should have been. And then he did those Back on the Block. He did those Q's Juke Joint, like All Star
Mhm.
Records, and people would just show up and show out, and he'd get some of the best performances out of them, like Secret Garden. With the Secret Garden was done over too, but that's an interesting story.
Yeah, I'll be
And then to
sure.
me,
El DeBarge, Barry White,
yes, and then
and
yes, it's
Jeff
Elder
Osborne.
Barge,
Not Jeff
I'll be
Osborne,
sure. Uh, what's his? Oh, you're talking about James Ingram.
James Ingram. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. But that's one of those songs that, as yet untitled, before we had our deal, we used to go and sing that at the open mic night. Like,
Okay.
he was the first producer when I first got into music seriously. He was he set the bar so high that I just said,
Mhm.
um, I'm just gonna watch him go and take absorb what I can. And fast forward, I wind up working with him on the Maya Angelou project. Like, I put together the nucleus of the record, and
Mhm.
as part of telling her story, because she was in the movie Roots and he had done the music, I had sampled some of his music and repurposed it. And I went to get his permission, and I actually sat with him and talked with him
Oh, you
about
did.
project. Yes, and there's a picture on my Instagram somewhere, and he's like sitting next to me. It's on a yacht that Oprah had paid for Maya Angelou's 80th birthday, and his son is a friend of mine. Well, he's got a bunch of sons, but shout out to QD3. We worked together on some unreleased as yet stuff, and then the bassist in my other band plays with his other son Sonny. So, like, I keep running it. I've ran into Quincy a few times at the X Prize launch, the first Richard Branson launch when they did the Race for Space. He was
Mm-mm.
there, and I was like one of the people that was in charge of bringing the artists from backstage onto the stage. I just wanted to be there to see the thing, and like Kiss was there, Sting and Quincy Jones, all these people were there. And he's like, "Hey, I know you. You worked with my son. How you doing, young man?" Like,
Are
he
you
was,
sure they're not trying to be Sylvester Stallone there or what?
but he was such a gracious soul. They don't make them like that anymore, but I wish they did.
Wow. Yeah,
So
the big debate is that if he didn't do Thriller, bad and off the wall, will the general public celebrate him as much as we do for those who went into the jazz recordings? Would we still hold him with Phil Spector or Howells and Dodger Stone, others?
Yeah.
Phil, would
You know
we
what?
just see him in that category?
I think there's a point to be made that because of the commercial success of those particular projects, that it made the transition into some of the other things he did more possible. But if there was some kind of way that, let's say, somebody got amnesia and he still did everything else but those two projects, but then still went on and had Vibe magazine and still did Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I'm leaving out so many things. It would be a thing where I think obviously that's like kind of asking if As Yet didn't have Last Night and Hard to Say I'm Sorry, we wouldn't have this interview. But I know I'd still be a great producer, but y'all wouldn't know that. So thanks for tuning in.
No, no,
Yeah, you make a point there. But I mean, I encourage everybody, like, if you don't know like how many things Quincy has done besides those things, and you listen to the actual, like, the Dude album, like even his jazz influenced R&B, and some of his lesser known records. Like, did you know that that Tamia record, You Put a Move in My Heart, was a remake?
a
It was
remake.
done by an artist named Mesa, and it like 3 years before, 4 years before.
But was
The whole,
that supposed to, because it was
but
written
Quincy
by
produced the most
Rod
popular version.
Temperton.
So yes, but that's the thing, is that he produced the most popular version, and that's something to be said for a producer. Where, like, a song that if someone can reimagine a song and lift it from obscurity, even though he didn't write it, that's kind of like what that guy Shawn Rivera did with Hard to Say I'm Sorry. I'm not saying that Chicago was in obscurity, but the song was 14 years old and it was a rock song. And then I heard it one way that brought it to some other people. I didn't come up with that. I learned from people like Quincy Jones, who will reimagine something, like, just they hear it their own way. The same way that a lot of Luther Vandross songs were remixes, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. But
Was Peter Carrera, why was he featured on that track? I suppose.
because at the time, um, Tamia this was her breakout record.
No, I'm talking about as it's so hard to say goodbye, the As Yet track.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought you were talking about the Quincy Jones project. Okay, so with Hard to Say, I'm Sorry.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Now, I know. Look, people think it's hard to say goodbye, or
Yeah.
people thought we were all for one. So sometimes I forget I'm not all for one. Shout out to all for one. So the thing is, right? The album cut, if when you bought the physical CD, the As Yet version is just our a cappella vocals, a beat and a snap that Face put in as, like a loop, just boom, boom, boom. But the single version, there is a version, like the remix was the Peter Cetera remix. And when David heard our a cappella, like, we put him on the phone, and man, I dang near
Who's
wept.
David?
So we just finished, like, okay, this is one of my favorite stories, so I'll make it.
Okay.
But I was going through this breakup, and I was working on this a cappella for As Yet's first record. And I always loved that song, Hard to Say I'm Sorry. I just love the sound of it. And I thought, ooh, it would be great for As Yet to do it a cappella, because we got signed singing a cappella, by the way. We didn't have tracks. We auditioned a cappella. So I'm like, we got to have at least one on there. This is the time. I'm going through a heartbreak. I had nothing but time. I was feeling all sad, and I was listening to the song. Anyway, so Babyface hears it. He says, okay, we're going to record this. And I'm like, yes, I got to produce with Babyface. Oh my God, this is going to be great. That would have been enough. That would have been enough just to do that. But then when we finished the recording, like, we're listening back to the mix, he says, let me make a call. Boop, boop, boop. He puts David Foster on speakerphone. He says, I think there's something you need to hear. And he plays it for David. And David says, hey, you mind if I get in on that? Like, he said it just like that. Let me get in on that. He comes and he plays piano, and he brings Peter Cetera to the studio. I mean, that was like I didn't, I did not expect it to go
Oh,
there. So when we shot the video, there's two different versions. One has Peter Cetera with us, and one is just us. But the funniest part is then you look in the comment section, and all these kids are like, "Who's that random white guy in the middle of the song?" I'm like, "It's this song." So yeah, he deserved to be featured. I mean, I wish we can go on tour with him to shoot.
Oh, so did David Foster produce the original, or who wrote the original?
Yes. Peter Cetera is one of the co-writers on it. Um, David produced the record, and from what I understand, there was a point when I was trying to get what they call derivative copyright, meaning that the new version gets a certain percentage because it's a new version.
Hmm.
But David said, he's like, I would have given it to you, but he had sold his rights to Warner Chappell. And
Oh,
so he told me who to reach out to, but obviously it was out of his hands. Warner Chappell said, and I quote, although it is a spirited rendition, we don't feel as though it meets the threshold for adding any new material. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I kind of agree. I can see their point because I didn't change the lyrics.
hmm.
Um, I actually truncated it. I formatted it differently, and I think that's worth something. But again, I did get paid to do the thing. I got credited properly as a producer and what do you call it, arranger, producer, and my vocal credits are on there. So everything that I did, I got credit for, and everything they did, they deserve credit for. So it is
Okay.
name nature of the business.
Okay. 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 Okay, so we kind of got how he got on there, and David just wanted to be part of something of it.
Yes, because he produced the original version. So he basically played the piano in the new version. And I swear, I thought that they sampled Peter Cetera in because it sounded like the record to me, right? Like even down to the layer, like he's known for like having a double of his voice and everything. I was like, wait, Peter came to the studio. Like, he came to see us at the studio, but he recorded his part. He didn't record his part that day. He just came to thank us. So like when I
Okay.
heard the record, I thought, wait, he just sample, but no, it still sounds the same. He literally went in. It was so funny. And then when we're shooting the video, he's all serious, right? As soon as the check, look, you got the clipboard like this. He's standing there in a suit, ready to go. And they're like, and action. And he goes, and after all, and he got all happy. And then they're like, cut. It was so funny, man. I mean, he's such a great guy.
So he'll
And then,
get into character, and then he'll just get.
yes, he would light up for the camera and then just like, and I think there's a skill to that. Like he's reserving his energy for when it counts.
Hmm.
And we just talked about how one good turn deserves another. So fast forward about a year and a half later, Peter Cetera is working on his greatest hits album. He calls us and he says, "Hey, I love what you guys did with Hard to Say I'm Sorry. I want to feature you guys on my record." He's like, "Have you ever heard of a song called You're the Inspiration?" We're like, "Are you kidding me?" So he actually had us come to his studio in Malibu, and he let us arrange it, and do the thing our way, the as yet way, and whatnot.
Hmm.
And there's a video floating out there, like we're on the beach in these hats with our shirts open. It's beautiful. It's available at Walmart's everywhere. You'll hear it in an elevator somewhere in America. But it's a really great song. So thanks to Peter for bringing us back on that
Okay.
one too. So I mean, we
But
weren't just one.
did you guys ever get him to perform it live?
You know what? There was. I'll put it like this: we would have loved to go on tour with him and do it live, but
Mm,
the nature of the way things turned out,
mm,
when we were off LaFace and unsigned, and music kind of went the way that it went, the closest thing I've seen to it was David Foster did like a tribute David Foster and Friends thing, and he had
mm.
All for One on there. And I'm like, he would have had the group on if we had the original members, I think. I think once
Okay.
once we didn't have the original members, a lot of the interest went away. So,
Mm,
it is what it is. And I don't fault anybody for that.
mm. So you kind of listed a
So
number
what
of
I'm saying is
people.
that we sang it with him. Like there was like a TV dinner thing. There was a thing that David Foster used to do around Grammy time called David Foster and Friends TV dinners. And what it was he'd have TV stars and musicians and movie people come to these private parties, and all the musicians would perform for the actors and blah 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 blah. Big networking thing, private party, white tie and stuff shirts and everything. And he had us, All for One, Celine Dion, pretty much everybody he worked with. Whitney on down was there. Barbara Streisand was there. Joe Pesci, you name it. I mean, it was just a who's who. And we got to sing with David, but it wasn't hard to say I'm sorry. It was all of us on stage singing. There was like he did a choir of all the people. Like we all got to sing our own songs,
Mm.
right? But then at the end, you remember the song To Be Real?
Got to
So
be
he
real.
produced that too. And he had, everybody up there singing To Be Real. And Celine Dion was next to me. And I said, I'm going to do the bump with Celine Dion. And she actually bumped it back. I was like, what? I got to find that video, man. It was hilarious. So we performed on the same stage with him, but for whatever reason, we never got a chance to pull it together like with us singing
Mm.
it with him. Like when we were recording the video and he did his parts, we sang it with him. You know what I mean? Like we sang the hook and he sang his part, but we never got a chance to really do it with the full band and the whole thing.
Mm.
Yet we're still alive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as I said, and these are memories, the experiences that the average person can only just dream about. And yeah, I've seen a video of David Foster giving a seminar to young artists and songwriters and talking about, just really work perfecting the craft and not chasing the money, and it just shows that those who love what they're doing, really sticking to it. We think about him in the mid 90s with On Break My Heart and things, those big tracks and stuff like that.
Hmm. Well, you know what? There's a guy named Vasal Benford, who's
Yeah,
another
yeah.
great.
Is it Jade? Did he do Jade?
Yeah, but he also did something on that record too, on the Unbreak My Heart record. He started as a jazz guy that played with Ramsey Lewis, and then
Mm.
he did some stuff with like Debla Morgan, some other artists, Shantae Moore, that
Okay,
sort
yeah.
of thing.
Mm.
And he had a label deal around the same time as Babyface and Clive Davis. But the funny thing is, what's interesting is the same way we talk about for every label, for every artist that blows up, there's a bunch. For every label, there are like these other labels run by potentially successful people that for one reason or another just don't blow up. They got a seed money like $10 million, $20 million, $50 million, and then they never get a release out or a lawsuit or whatever happens, and then that money's just down the drain. And all these artists,
Mm.
how many actors and athletes start labels and 10 years later still no release? And I'm not even knocking them. I'm just saying that it's kind of failure is the norm in this business. The successes are the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
So is it weird to offer advice to expect failure because that's the norm? I mean, that would be a weird way to live your life,
Yeah,
but
well,
don't
I
be
mean,
surprised.
yeah. Yeah, but I think if you set the expectations, uh, you're more realistic with the expectations, um, it just means people will continue to focus on working as hard as they can, and but also know what the motive is. Why does someone want to be a recording artist? Is it to become rich and famous, or is it just got so much music in them? Jacob Collier was content in his bedroom, just doing what he was doing. And I saw that in the documentary, it's like, yeah, when Quincy called up and stuff, and it's like, yeah, want a DVD. It was like he wasn't ready. He was just ready. He just wanted just to learn from them until they were ready to do stuff. So yeah, in that way,
Yes,
you
indeed.
can then just put the time into it and then step back and not expect more than you should and stuff.
I know that's right. And speaking of which, I think I've taken up enough of your time. I shouldn't expect you've given me more time than I would have expected you would, and I appreciate you for that. I mean, seriously, like every time we talk, it's always healing for me and exciting. And hopefully, I'll get a chance to have Viva Mas on the show when we're finished the project we're working on now. Because I think we talked to you during COVID, and they've asked about you. So Viva Mas says, "What's up?" Um, and
Yeah.
I have no advice for anyone this time around.
No, but yeah, as I said, it would be, I'm sure. Oh, I'm hearing you guys are working on a new a secret project, so it would be interesting once it's out, and maybe getting them on and seeing wherever they are, whether they can coordinate and sync. you
Dude.
know,
But
on the
I
show.
love the challenge. Yes,
Yeah.
that's because I remember we tried to do like a live thing, but because of all the different, Zoom was in, I say Zoom chats were in their infancy back then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Different times now, but yes, I mean this. So are you in out in Texas or where
now I'm
you?
actually in Philadelphia for an undetermined period of time. It's like till we get it done. Because we've got this opportunity to put together a project for the upcoming summer, and everything just seemed to line up. Like usually the studio is hard to get because we're using the same studio that we use for some of our other projects, but it's a very popular studio that everybody from the OJs to Levert and Kathy Sledge, a lot of the Philly legends have worked out of this studio. It's old school analog meets brand new digital.
Mhm.
We've got it blocked out to get things done, but also just everyone, we took some time off to kind of get our lives in order, and it just makes sense. Like we're at this now or never. Like this is it for us.
Mhm.
We're OGs now, so we got to teach these young how to coordinate.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, next time we'll definitely go live once you finish with your project and stuff like that. But it'll be interesting, and yeah, if we do get to see a young Shawn and discovering a budding talent like Leona Lewis, which it would be interesting just to see those ones as well. But
Yes.
yeah,
Well,
but
now that I'm back home, I'm gonna dig through my mother's attic, and I got so many of the things, like the stories that we talk about. I've got receipts for those stories, so you know, I'll be sure to bring the exclusive right here to halftime chat.
yeah, that's much appreciated. Okay, Sean. Well, it is about just about after 11 at night, so I'll let you be, and we'll always
Yes,
be
yes,
around to
yes,
chat.
yes, indeed. Sleep well.
We'll definitely do. Okay. Um, and hold on at me. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of Halftime Chat. Please remember to subscribe, share, and comment. But most importantly, why don't you become a member of Halftime Chat? We've got amazing videos, amazing perks, and being able to support the channel. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.
I never participated in that kind of.
And somewhere in between us, or even loving us, on which I didn't miss you with.
What was it like growing up?
Businesses should still make an impact on 4 houses down.
I have a couple of pieces.
Trying to get this one and that one.
That works for you, but just for me,
No. Okay.
They don't understand what Joseph Boys and Women all
Play it.
and all these guys, they all work together.
I mean, I love all different genres.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of Halftime Chat. Please remember to subscribe, share, and comment. But most importantly, why don't you become a member of Halftime Chat? We've got amazing videos, amazing perks, and being able to support the channel. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.
I never participated in that kind of.
And somewhere in between us, or even loving us, on which I didn't miss you with.
What was it like growing up?
Businesses should still make an impact on 4 houses down.
I have a couple of pieces.
Trying to get this one and that one.
That works for you, but just for me,
No. Okay.
They don't understand what Joseph Boys and Women all
Play it.
and all these guys, they all work together.
I mean, I love all different genres.